Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of NC-17. My name is Josh, and today we have an actor, director, and probably one of the funniest people I've seen in the last decade. We got Steve Rudzinski. I said that last name right, right?
Yes, you did.
All right. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I just found a fruitcake in my kitchen that is not expired, so I'm going to destroy that tomorrow night. It's a great day.
Oh yeah. Not a big fan of fruitcake, but I am a big fan of cake because, well, that's a different story. uh So before we get into your films and stuff like that, kind of if you can give a little bit of a background of what kind of got you into wanting to be a director and an actor, and was it something you always dreamed of?
It's I've always wanted to create. Ever since I was in the single digits, I started off with wanting to write for comic books, and became writing for video games. And then when I was 12, I saw Army of Darkness, and that's when I said, I'm making movies. That's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Because Army of Darkness was, I did love movies already. I watched a lot of movies as a kid, and even more now as an adult. But Army of Darkness was kind of the trigger, where it just made me laugh a lot and feel really good. And it was there for me during a tough time, and I wanted to kind of do that for other people, and it just felt right. It just felt like the stuff you could do with the camera and the story and the editing. It was just so cool to me that was the thing.
Uh, uh, that's a very good movie to give you inspiration and say this is what I want to do because out of the trilogy, that one was the one that kind of drew a lot of people in because it introduced a lot of people that were
Mhm.
familiar with it to the comedy.
It was my first of the Evil Dead series. I fully admit that, yeah. And then I became obsessed as a child.
Uh, uh, so going forward, after you saw that and you wanted to do the films and stuff like that, when you were getting starting, and were there a lot of bumps in the road, or was it just like you did what you needed to do and you made sure it was taken care of?
I mean, I made garbage backyard movies, as a teenager. That's where it started. It was on 8 millimeter, and then it was on mini DV on a little one chip camcorder, and then I tried spent thousands to get a 3 chip DVX 100B to shoot in standard definition on a mini DV tape still, but you had 3 chips, so the color was better. Um, and yeah, I mean, I made a lot of bad stuff when I was in my teens and even in my very early 20s, honestly. There was the stuff I did in the backyard, like I said. When I was getting a little bit older, we tried doing some stuff for the internet that wasn't really going anywhere. And then I took a bit of a break from trying to make movies to chase some internet trends at the time. Online series were doing better, so I tried that. That didn't work out for me. And then in 2010 is when I finally kind of said, nah, I mean, I'm a movie guy. I want to do movies. So I kind of buckled down, co-wrote something, and it was a short for the internet still, go figure, but it was a standalone movie as opposed to a series or shorts or sketches or something like that. And that was The Slasher Hunter. And that got enough positive attention and enough positive feedback that rejuvenated me to want to continue doing films and features for my career. Um, we did Everyone Must Die the year after that, which came out in 2012, and it's not good, but I'm glad that I did it because I got a feature out there. It sold, it got distribution at the time. Some people liked it. It got me hired for a gig the following year. And then it just kind of kept domino falling in my favor because all of my points are in my luck stat, from what I can tell. Luck and charisma, nothing else. I'm not smart or strong, but I'm lucky and really charming.
Uh, Speaking of Everyone Must Die, can you kind of go into the mindset you had in directing that movie, and was there a moment during filming that you kind of that stands out to you?
My mindset when directing Everyone Must Die was I want to do Basic Slaughter again, except good. And it was a massive improvement over Basic Slaughter, which I made in 2007. So I was very, very young. I don't even consider it my first feature because it was still me not knowing what the hell to do, and it was still a bunch of guys just screwing around. But it was the same concept of like the faceless, nameless killer, and there's multiples of them. And I thought the idea had merit, so I wanted to go again now that I had the experience of Slasher Hunter under my belt, and even VG Spoofs, my online series. Um, and I just knew that I needed to get something. I needed to get it done. I needed to get it out. That was my mindset. That was my driving force. In terms of what I remember, honestly, and some people in the reviews complain about this listening to the audio commentary on the Blu-ray, and they're right. We talk about it too much, but all I remember is how brutally hot the set was. Like, except for one day on Captain Z, which was a rough day, uh, all my other sets have been very laid back, very relaxed. My cast and crew are very well taken care of. I got 8-hour days or less, sometimes 9 or 10 at the very most. But like everyone's comfortable. I take care of everyone. I make sure everyone's good. But everyone must die. Between my inexperience and the fact that most of the movie had to be outside because we lost like this big gorgeous house location the last minute, so that it had to be an outside only for the majority of the movie. And it was like the hottest week of the whole summer, so everyone was miserable. Everyone was sweating. I didn't have budget for lodging, so people were either sleeping in the secondary shooting location house, which had no air conditioning, or there was like 5 people sleeping in my tiny like 2-room apartment with air conditioning. So it was just a miserable experience, and it's completely my fault. And I feel bad for everyone that worked with me on that movie, but they never worked with me again to see how much I got better.
uh, so after getting that, like your first fill of film and stuff like that, and when did you cross over from being kind of like just a director to where you wanted to start doing the whole acting thing too, or was that something you did just all along?
And that's something I did all along just for budgetary reasons. Um, the vast majority of the time when I'm acting in my own movie, it was literally just to save money. I mean, Slasher Hunter, I wanted to be in because I always do that wacky Freddy parody voice anyway. So yeah, I'm going to be the Freddy parody. Everyone Must Die. That was just like I'll save $400 if I act in this movie. Derek, you co-wrote it, you're co-producing it. We'll save another 400 if you act in the movie. There we go. Super Task Force. Like I only got like $2,000 to make this movie, and I have always kind of wanted to be like a Super Sentai hero Power Ranger. So okay, I'll do it. Captain Z, I was bullied into doing it by the financer. He wanted me to act in that. Same thing happened with Carousel. I did not want to be Joe the Pizza Guy at all. I wrote the script, wrote the character just because the character made me laugh and it was funny. And then Alina Isley, the co-creator and the co-writer, said, "You got to be Joe." I don't want to be Joe. Like I just want to direct. This is a big project, a lot of characters. I just want to direct. Cinematographer Scott Lewis read the script and said, "Steve, you gotta be Joe. This is you. This is exactly what I'm like. I don't want to be Joe. I just want to direct." And then the financer who was giving us the money for Carousel said, "You got to be Joe." And I said, "Yes, sir. Absolutely. You got it." So I got bullied into Joe, and then obviously I kept the role going forward because I don't like to recast when I don't have to. Um, Other than that, being Wally Griswold is a role that I did want to play. Like I absolutely like went into the Meowie movies, and going forward as he's like my Ernest P. Worrell character. That is a role I explicitly wanted to play because I love the lovable live action cartoon dipshit. I love that character, and I love being Wally. So Wally is definitely like, you don't gotta twist my arm, baby. I'm in. Other than that, acting wise, I like to act, but I definitely would prefer acting in other people's movies where I'm not also worrying about the directing and producing and scheduling and getting the food and everything. If I could just act on a film, I'm into it. I still like performing. I still do like acting with other people. I just really generally don't like doing it on my own films. And I end up doing it every time simply because at this point with my fan base, I seem to be I'm part of the product. Like they care if I'm in the movie, and if I'm not, they care a whole lot less about the film. So I got to be part of it somehow. It seems like at this point.
Oh yeah. Uh, so the one that like my first movie I saw that you made was Shingles,
Okay.
and I actually just talked to Carly not too long ago, and as a matter of fact, an hour ago. But you know, the thing about like Shingles was the anthology movie doesn't get enough credit for what it does because I mean I might be wrong and you can correct me if I am, but doing different stories in one movie, you're going to get a lot of different personalities and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
different takes. Uh, do you find making anthologies harder than making a just a full film?
Let me give you the pros and cons of the whole anthology thing. So obviously that's a film that I was just hired to produce and direct. Like I didn't write that script. And the script was already an adaptation of a book series from the guys that hired me. Um, so it had its own struggles and challenges in the terms that it was an adaptation of an adaptation at that point, and how much to deliver to the fans versus how much to pull back to try to get new fans that would just be finding the movie. But what really sold me on definitely taking the job, aside from being paid because I have a mortgage, is just the fact that in a lot of anthologies, especially on the indie level, and this isn't dumping on anyone specific, this isn't dumping on any specific film, this is just a generalized statement, and I mean that I have come to the conclusion to after like a decade or 2 decades of seeing them. You got these anthologies that will have 3, 4, 5 different directors for each story. And like every single time I have seen one of these, and whenever I've read people's reviews, it's like they only like one or two of the stories because they liked that director's style, and the rest of the movie doesn't hold them at all. So the fact that this was going to be an anthology all directed by me, for better or for worse, and don't get me wrong, people still have their favorite stories because, again, they were different writers and different authors. So there's still different tones and styles. But the directing and the visuals and the editing would be consistent. So it would either kind of pull you in for at least most of the film, or you should know pretty soon that this isn't for you. So I was really into that idea. But it is hard to do an anthology because, unlike, say, A Care is Hell or Curtains for Christmas, where I have these set of characters going forward, and like I know that the schedule is very easy, and if as I'm killing these people, they're gone, they're gone, they're gone, and then it's kind of like you start with this many people, and the number just gets smaller as you go. So there's kind of like a level of progress to it. Excuse me. Sorry. But with an anthology, it was the biggest cast I've ever had. Not all at once, but just in terms of like having to cast, having to hire them, having to schedule them, because there's 5 different stories in the Shingles movie. You know, like that's a cast of like 40, maybe 50 total human beings on this movie, which is insane. And keeping track of that and trying to put that together was hard. I'm going to be honest, and especially like trying to figure out the schedule because it's like on one hand, some part of the schedule was easy because it was like these 3 days is for this movie, these 3 days is for this movie. So it's kind of like just making several short films in a row that were all kind of enclosed. But at the same time, there's no like me, Aline Isley, who is production manager, Scott Lewis, who's cinematographer. We were on like firing all cylinders mode the whole time because we didn't get to a point where we could like be dying down and we're done as we're like reaching, like we're shooting the last day of Put Your Hand in My Ass, the first of the major stories. And like it's only like a 4-hour day. It's easy. It's laid back. On a normal shoot, that'd be like the day before the last day or the last day. For us, it's day 3. We still got 11, 12 more days after this. So it was a lot of pressure on us. And also, it was just very tiring by the end of the production. We shot The Aliens Wrecked Our Kegger, the segment I acted in last, just because it made the most sense logistically. And like when we wrapped, I was like, fuck this movie. And not because it was a bad experience, not because I didn't like working for the Authors and Dragons, not because I thought the movie was bad. I was just so exhausted that finally getting to the end after like getting to the end like 4 times prior, like it's hard to explain, but it really does make total sense if you're coming from a creative standpoint. Like it was just start and go, start and go, start and go, and know like, oh, we're nearing the end, like because it was consistently fresh. So that was a new experience for me. I always wanted to make an anthology though, so I'm really really glad that I made Shingles the movie. And I would absolutely, if they ever wanted me, I would go back and make Shingles too. Like I wouldn't debate it. I wouldn't argue like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like, no, I'd do it again. but maybe I would schedule things a little bit differently next time or something like that. I don't know, but
Oh yeah. Uh, so Curtains for Christmas. You directed and acted. You were one of the main leads. Uh, when you were making that film, did it really set in like this might be something more than what you had expected?
I was hoping. Um, because if you haven't seen it yet, it was kind of a spin-off idea from Amityville Christmas Vacation, which I did as a joke, shot it in 2 days for $300, and it blew up. Like it got me a Fangoria Chainsaw Award, which I never thought I'd get in my life. I made horror history somehow for my stupid joke. Right place, right time. That's all I can come up with. But we had a lot of fun doing that, like rom-com in a horror setting, except in Amityville it was just a rom-com. It was PG, all about the romance and nothing else. So it was actually Aline's idea, like, what if we do the rom-com in a horror again, except it's a horror. It's an R-rated horror. And there's not that many, like, well, I don't know of another movie that combined the genres like that. Hilariously enough, we just saw Hard Eyes, which actually also loves the rom-com aspect as much as the horror like we did. But at least up until that point, when it comes to like Christmas rom-com, no one else had done that before. But it's a niche because it's like, will this appeal to the gore hounds because of the violence? Because we put a lot of money into the effects. Will this appeal more to like the market of women because it is also a rom-com with like a lady protagonist and stuff? So, and at the same time, it's a fresh IP. It was the first new IP I'd made in 7 years since A Meowie Christmas, the first one. Ever since then, it was either sequels or adaptations. So making something new again was like, oh man, I hope this hits kind of like how Carousel did. And it's still early. Like the movie just came out in August of last year. It hasn't even been a full year yet. We only hit one convention with the movie. And it hasn't helped that the only digital service that has picked it up is Prime Video. And I think it's some like small, super tiny streamer called Frightflix or something like that. It's not on Tubi or anything. But a good amount of people have already seen it, even though it's only on Prime Video. Like I didn't expect to get over 100. It's like at 150 views on Letterboxd, and I was expecting that to be a third of that since it's only on Prime. So it is picking up some speed, which I appreciate. I think it's a really solid movie to watch. I really do. It's like I'm always torn between that or Carousel 3 being my favorite. But Carousel 3 being my favorite has more to do with like it's a conclusion, like it's a trilogy ender. It's big. It's like the ending of all these arcs. Whereas Curtains is just a really solid, to me, standalone comedy horror film with good effects and good characters and stuff. But I don't think it's found its exact market yet, like how Carousel has, because at least that has like the weird sentient unicorn concept that like really sells people immediately. Curtains is more like a lot of people kind of like just roll the dice on it and they're not into it, which is fine. Or they're like, I didn't expect it to be this gory, guys. Like, so I think it's still trying to find its footing. I hope it keeps doing well. I hope it picks up because I think it deserves the attention. I'm really proud of Curtains for Christmas.
Oh, yeah. I was actually able to see it thanks to you.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
did you see my review?
Yes.
Do you remember what I gave it? What rating I gave it?
It was a 7 or an 8.
It was a 7. But I
Okay.
have gone and rewatched it, and I watched it with my wife. She gave it a 6 because she's not into the gore.
Sure.
After watching it
That's
the
still pretty
second
good
time,
for someone that's not into the gore, though. I'll take that. That's still positive.
oh yeah. But after watching it a second time, it shot up to a 9 because the first time was pure entertainment. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Second
Yeah.
time was more along the lines of getting to know these characters individually, whether how small the role was or how big the role was. And there was little nuances I've seen in there that kind of just made it better the second time, if that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
does, and I hear that a lot. Not specifically about Curtains or anything. That's still a wonderful compliment. Like, thank you so much. I genuinely appreciate that. But definitely, it seems to be a staple or signature of a lot of my movies, if not all of my movies, is that like I jam pack these scripts with a lot of crap. Positive. Not just garbage, but just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of, and I don't mean like, oh, I put a lot of layers in my films, but there's a lot of layers to each character in terms of the jokes, in terms of motivation, in terms of relationships, in terms of things in the background. Or, I will do like 4 jokes in a row just to make sure one of them hits. And I hear a lot from people that like they like one of my movies and then they watch it again and they're like, I liked it more because now I noticed this and this and this. And that's kind of what I like about some movies too. There are some of my favorite movies that I rewatch over and over again, and I'm seeing all these incredible details that I definitely did not see the first time I watched them. And I try to do that, and from what I hear, I'm okay at succeeding at it. So I'm really happy to hear that upon a rewatch, yeah, you saw more to the characters, or you saw more to the gags, or the setups and stuff. Because I do try to put a lot of that in there. I want to make it impossible to catch everything your first time. I really do.
All right. So I have a favorite kill in that movie, but do you have a favorite like just prosthetic
I mean,
that you? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
everything that happens to Joan is my favorite part. Like that's like we put the most money into that, and I just wanted that to be the most extreme, over the top. Because up to that point, it's actually a pretty grounded horror movie, aside from Dominic, like being a comedy concept. But up until that point, it's not. I usually make live action cartoons. And up to that point, this movie hasn't been that much of a live action cartoon. So I wanted everyone to be like, what is happening now? Why does she have a gun? That is a lot of bullets. Now she's cutting off the face. And now she's wearing it and everyone believes her. Okay. That's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing about this though is like in the middle of it, somehow you managed to also throw in a wrestling match. I mean,
Yes, of course.
and I'm a big time wrestling fan, so whenever I see it, I'm like, that's awesome. But I wasn't expecting it, which made it
Mm-hmm.
again more enjoyable because it was like, okay, now I'm expecting it. Now I can see who's really the villain here. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, that was inspired by the fact that, like, I mean, like, I earnestly watch a lot of Christmas rom-coms all year long. Like, it's like horror and like Christmas rom-coms maybe is my second favorite genre. I just love them. They make me feel good, even when they're sappy or dumb or milk toast. I can still get some sort of enjoyment out of them. When I find a good one, they're good. But almost all of them have like some sort of competition at some point in the film. So Aline and I really wanted to reference that. So she came up with like, what if it's a gingerbread house or gingerbread competition? I'm like, that's perfect. And we're going to talk about how it's like a big deal to everyone, and they just break out in a brawl because it's like they take it more seriously than anything in existence. And I've
uh,
worked with wrestlers before. If you're a wrestling fan, definitely watch Carousel 3 and A Meowie Christmas Vacation. We literally get into a ring in both of those films. So I just thought it'd be funny if I'd got like 5 or 6 guys and just like, hey, just go at it because I can trust them. Like I
yeah.
know I trust wrestlers, I respect wrestlers, what they do in terms of the stunts that they can do, the choreography that they can handle, and they can call their own match, which means like I didn't have to walk through with every single actor in that scene of what to do. I was just like, hey, you two are gonna fight and you three are gonna fight. What you got? And like 5 minutes later, I had something from both. And that makes the shooting go smoother too.
Oh yeah. You'll hear it from me instead of watching WrestleMania because all that stuff is crazy right now. Everyone should definitely check out Curtains for Christmas because probably some of the best wrestling I've seen. So, uh, you all right? So you break a lot of boundaries in this film with one thing: the child. Was not expecting that, but at the end of the day, when it happened, I was like, there was just no other way that this couldn't happen. If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
So in like coming up with that idea, was it something that you kind of like wrestled with? No pun intended. Uh, where maybe we should or maybe we shouldn't, or was it just it's in there, we're doing it?
Um, I'll say, I'll give you the quick answer first. There was no debate. It was in there. We're doing it. But since you started with Curtains for Christmas, I'm glad that you didn't see it coming at all. Because my other fans, as soon as the kids showed up, they were like, "Oh no!" Because in Carousel 1, the entire plot is Duke the Unicorn is tracking down a kid to kill for revenge, and that's how we end the movie. Except it's the biggest cheer because everyone hated that kid, which was the intent. This time, I wanted the kid to be sweet and nice and like have a little bit of sass, like kids do, but like I wanted her to be a good kid that people liked. Um, but how it came together was again, Aline, the co-writer, was out somewhere. I don't remember where. It doesn't matter. And I was watching a Christmas rom com by myself, just kind of taking notes. We were in the outline phase. Like we didn't have any solid mega plot from start to finish yet. And I just texted her, being like, "Hey, so you know how in all these rom coms, like almost every time the male love interest, or even sometimes the female love interest, they have a kid. What if I have a kid? What if Jay has a kid?" And immediately, as I was typing my next sentence to send, which was, "and then you kill the kid," Aline replied back before I could send the message, "and then I fucking kill the kid, right?" So
Oh
we
yeah.
were all in. As soon as I mentioned child, Aline wanted to murder the child. I don't know what that says about her. It's the second time she's come up with the idea to kill the kid, but I like it. And again, it does work perfectly, especially with Holly's motivations, with everything, the concept of everything falling apart during the ending of the film. And yeah, if it's your first movie of mine that you're seeing, it is still kind of seen as taboo in horror films to this day, even though lots of horror films have killed kids. Like a lot of horror films have killed kids. It still comes off as like, I didn't think you were going to kill the kid. Now, I'll never
Wow.
kill an animal on screen.
Yeah.
That's my line in the sand.
Oh
But
yeah.
human children, tear them apart. And I and
uh,
we made it. We didn't like explicitly try to make it like mega brutal. Cody Rook showed up with the concave face. That wasn't in the script, but it does continue to push sort of this idea. Like Curtains for Christmas feels like my meanest movie. Like a lot of my other horror comedies are a little bit more lighthearted. Like the brutality and the gore can still be there, but it's a lot sillier. Whereas like you like these characters and you're feeling bad as they're getting killed, and they're getting killed really brutally when they don't deserve it. But also, we really wanted to kill a child named Jason with a crowbar while quoting the Joker from Death in the Family. So,
oh yeah. Uh, so upon watching it the first time, I knew who the villain was. I knew what like halfway through the movie, not even halfway, 5 minutes into the movie, you know what's gonna happen. Watching it the second time, I kind of reversed it a little bit. I was like, well, this lady's just looking for love and someone who can find a similar love of Christmas for her. So
yeah,
maybe she's not the villain, and maybe they are. But at the end of the day, she's the villain.
yeah. I mean, yeah, from her perspective, you're absolutely right. Like, she is. It's the same thing we did with the first Carousel. Now, in the Carousel series, spoilers, you haven't seen the trilogy yet, but like Duke does get a face turn. Like by the second film, he realizes he's a daddy, he wants to be a better person. By the third film, like everyone is on Team Duke. Like Duke has arguably redeemed himself. He's putting more good into the world than bad. As a whole, and that was always intended too. Like we knew that was the plan. But still, when we wrote the first Carousel and when we have written Curtains for Christmas, the idea was the bad guy is the protagonist of the story. Like, yeah, Holly is the villain. She's the murderer. She's killing these innocent people. But this is her story. Like this is about her. It is from her perspective. So you see that maybe she has a point. You sympathize with her. If we told the story from Jay's perspective and we saw Holly as much as we see Jay, Holly would easily be the bad guy. She'd be the crazy villain. Like you'd root against her maybe, or you might root for her still. But like it would be so clear. But when you're with Holly from the start and you're seeing that like she's crying and like you're seeing that she's just lonely and wants that connection, and a lot of people are rooting for Holly by the end, even though she is by all objective ways of rating, a terrible human being. But it doesn't matter because you still feel that empathy because she is a person. And that's kind of what we wanted to do with that. Like she's still a person. She's just able to brutally murder all these people to get what she wants.
uh, so all right, being a horror fan, I've seen a lot of horror movies, and I kind of like when certain things happen in a movie, I'm like, okay, did they draw inspiration from this, or maybe not. But Santa Claus and her at the end, when without spoiling anything, the good people get away. I'll say it that way. Uh, it was kind of reminiscent of Psycho Cop Returns
Oh,
because
okay.
Psycho Cop, you've seen that one, right?
Yeah.
All right, because when they think he's dead because he fell down the elevator shaft and all of a sudden he acts in the shoulder, I'm like, that's what I took from that. I mean, I don't
Okay.
know if you were going for that.
That was not the intent. I'll say that. I'm seeing what you're saying for sure, but that was nowhere in my head. That was just a case where I oftentimes have had that character save the day in other films. In this one, it's not the real Santa.
Yeah.
It is just a guy, but I still wanted to kind of like do that bit where Santa shows up again. Um, and I just wanted Santa holding an axe, throwing it into someone's body, and saying naughty to reference Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh yeah. Excellent movie, by the way. uh, when filming was near the end, and you see what happened with Santa and Jessica Flex's character and the main villain. After a minute, you see something extra. Was that planned to kind of like be a little bit of a forwarding, if that makes sense?
It's not meant to be a sequel tease. Like again, like when we wrote Carousel 1, we had the trilogy envisioned at that point. We knew exactly what the second movie was going to be about, and we had an idea of what like the themes and the message of 3 was going to be about, but not the plot yet. With Curtains, this was intended and conceived and created as just a standalone film, as a one and done. And like, yeah, if it makes a bunch of money and the fans want more Holly's coming back. Don't get me wrong, I like money, but that is not the intent. So the little extra, it's not a sequel tease. It's just meant to be kind of like a fun little epilogue of like,
Okay.
this is still happening.
Oh yeah. Uh, Also, throughout that movie, she's watching the TV and she's seeing another Christmas movie,
Mm-hmm.
which you actually did film, and it's called A Cheesy Christmas.
Yes.
Uh, when you were, because again, I talked to Carly not too long ago, and she said that you were like, you know what, fuck it, let's just film it.
Yeah.
You know, so when you did that, was it kind of along the lines of two for the price of one, really?
Basically, yeah. Because originally, A Cheesy Christmas was conceived as just those 3 scenes in Curtains for Christmas. It was just meant to be that fake movie in a movie, a fun reference to my Meowie movies, which were talking animal movies, to kind of do it again, but not do it. Um, but then, as like we were nearing the first shooting day for this movie, and the first shooting day was just cheesy Christmas stuff, just to kind of so I can get that all cut together so that I can have it ready for a set for Curtains. Um, but as I was getting to that day, I was like, I can write 15 more pages, and I got a whole other movie here. Like,
Oh yeah.
and I'm already paying these actors, like the Curtains for Christmas rate, like that day rate with like the full 5-figure budget. What if I just have them each come back one day, and I would tell them like I'll pay you again. It won't be as much as the Curtains rate, but I'll pay you again. And I basically made A Cheesy Christmas for about $300 because I already was making half the movie for Curtains for Christmas anyway. And like all we did was extend that day of shooting, which was only a 4-hour day of shooting. We extended it by an hour and a half. And then, yeah, I just brought each of those actors back one day after we were done with Curtains for Christmas. And then, yeah, I don't know, Carly said about what the movie was, but I love WNUF and the Halloween Mega Mixtape. I think that's the title of the sequel. I always get it like jumbled a little bit because of the wording. But I love those films and how they emulate the nostalgia of watching television in the 80s and the 90s. That didn't exist for Christmas yet. So while I do not think A Cheesy Christmas is as good as either of those movies, that's what A Cheesy Christmas is. It's emulating Holly's VHS tape that she had as a kid of A Cheesy Christmas when it aired in 1994, complete with the fake commercials.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really glad that I did make it. And I do think that I've definitely had it hasn't been seen by as many people yet, but the few that have, I'll agree. Like it's like a 3 out of 5. It's fine, but it definitely emulates watching television in the 90s. So I'm like, okay, cool. At least I accomplished that. But yeah, it really was just a very capitalist 2 for the price of 1, like you said.
uh, so in directing all the films you've done and also acting in all the films you've done, do you ever like think that maybe it's time to kind of like take a break and then come back to it, or is it you have an idea and you have to get it out there?
I wish I could take a break. 2024 was the year I planned on taking a break and making nothing because, like, we shot and released Carousel 2 in 2021. Then in 2022, we shot Shingles the movie, shot and released Amityville Christmas Vacation. 2023, we released Shingles the movie and then shot and released Carousel 3. So, like, this is like 5 major projects. Well, 4 major projects plus Amityville back to back to back to back. So I was like, 2024, I just want to take off. Like, I want to hit some conventions maybe, but like, I don't want to make anything. And then Aline had the fantastic idea of the Curtains for Christmas, which I could not say no to. So we ended up making Curtains for Christmas and A Cheesy Christmas in 2024. But I knew I wasn't taking this year off because I have to, just like I parodied the Amityville franchise, I need to parody the public domain cartoon character genre and make my Popeye movie.
Oh yeah,
So
isn't
I
it
got
called Wally Meets Popeye?
Wally Meets Popeye. So
Yeah.
that Kickstarter's going now, folks. If you want to pre-order it, that's just to get the nice, big, fancy silicone arms. Otherwise, the movie's still getting made. He would just look less like Popeye. Um, and Aline wants to direct her first feature film ever this year called I Scream. The Kickstarter for that will actually launch next month. I'm going to push that one harder because that's the original film, and I think she's going to do a great job with it. And then next year, we might be doing Carousel 4 for the 10-year anniversary of Carousel 1. Haven't super decided on it yet, but we might be doing that. And it's just like, on one hand, yeah, I do still really want to take a break. But on the other hand, getting something new out every year is really beneficial to me, I've discovered as an independent filmmaker, because every single time I come out with a new film, it is always seen by new people who have never heard of me before. And then if they like it, all my other movies start getting checked out. I start selling my older library. I start spreading further again, or like the streaming numbers perk up. It's keeping me in the lexicon of independent filmmakers, it seems like. So at this point, especially after Carousel 4, I'm torn. I'd love to take a break, but A, I might get hired for something, and I'll always say yes. But also, if I'm being genuine, I'm a little afraid of taking a break because having something new every year has been keeping me in people's minds and letting new people find me and new people discover me. I'm afraid if I take that year off, sales will plummet, and less people would discover me than they would have. So I'm very unsure of the idea of taking a break as much as I would like to. Um, but it might just be a case where, like, one year I just make a small $300 movie like an Amityville or a Meowie instead of that plus a 5-figure larger budgeted movie the same year. We'll see.
Oh man. Oh yeah. We're nearing our time. Is you can plug all your socials now if you'd like, and where people can see your movies, buy your movies, help your Kickstarters, all that stuff.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, folks, if you collect physical media, if you like DVDs, if you like Blu-rays, please head over to my store, silverspotlightfilms.com. All my movies, except for Shingles the Movies, that's owned by the financiers. That's on shinglesthemovie.com, I think. But all of my other movies that I've made are on Blu-ray there. They're on DVD. I'm a big proponent of physical media. I'll always offer it so long as I'm actually able to. If you aren't a physical person, but you still want to check out my stuff and support me, I do have a Patreon, stevebuster.com. For $2.99 a month, you get access to my entire modern library, starting with Slasher Hunter to now. And they're all private links that you can bookmark, you can download and keep them forever. I don't care. Just please don't share the links. Please. And for $4.99 a month, you get access to the Discord, but also you get like every bonus feature that I've made for all of my physical media, and you get a bunch of exclusives that I've made just for Steve Buster, like retrospectives, shorts that I made for Steve Buster only that are nowhere else, stuff like that. So I do think there's some value there, and it pays me a whole lot more. Even if you just subscribe for 1 month and watch all my movies, that pays me literally hundreds of times more than if you just stream all of my movies. That being said, if you don't want to spend any money, I know the economy's bad, everything's terrible, the world is falling apart. Who knows what's going to happen? But most of my films are streaming on Tubi TV. So if you want to watch any of the Carousels or the Meowies or any of the Christmas Vacation, almost all of my features are on Tubi TV. Just please don't use an ad blocker so I get my 5 cents for your view. Like I said earlier, Curtains for Christmas is only available to rent on Prime Video, so please feel free to do that. It's like $1.99 to rent on Prime Video, or like I said, my Patreon's only $2.99. So for $1 extra, you support me better, and you get 17 movies instead of one. So please consider that. And as I also said, Wally Meets Popeye Kickstarter is going now. I don't have a specific URL for it, but if you just Google Wally Meets Popeye, it is the top result. You can pre-order just a digital link to watch it, a DVD, a Blu-ray, a special thanks, and that's pretty much it. There's an executive producer and a casting credit. I'm not expecting those to go, but they're there. So if it sounds interesting, especially if you like Amityville Christmas Vacation and what I did with a parody of that genre, that's what I'm doing with this one. Because Popeye's the good guy. It's a PG film. It is just making fun of the idea of turning all these cartoon characters into brutal maniacs instead of doing something other than that. That's all. And hey, it's a formula that works. So no knock on the filmmakers, but I want to do something different. That's all.
All right. All right. Well, Steve, I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you
And
so much for having me. I'm glad you enjoyed Curtains. And this was a fantastic conversation.
oh, thank you. Uh, I'm definitely going to be going onto your site and buying all your movies just because I need them for my physical media collection.
Thank
You
you.
but you have a home here with NC-17. Anytime you want to come on, you're more than welcome. Even if it's to say, I have a booger in my nose. All
I
right.
appreciate that. A little lean no for sure too. Once Ice Cream starts coming together, because I think that'll also be up your alley if you like our sense of humor, since we
Oh,
work
yeah.
together so much.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. All right. Again, thank you. And everybody, till next time, stay NC-17.